So if you want to give an introduction or if you about yourself a little bit now that hopefully it's running good, stream is good, fingers crossed.
Yeah, hello. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I did not vote for Zohran Mamdani. I'm now suffering because he's in power. I support Trump, though I don't know what's going on with Iran, but I'm a conservative all the way, and I want what's best for America.
So no, you don't have to ask him in the comment section if he's America first. So that tells you right there. But what's up, Tom Pepin? He was the guy that was in the Discord with us before.
Oh, awesome.
But what really made you, do you want to tell everyone what made you want to come on, or where do you want to transition the topic of conversation towards?
So, believe it or not, this is actually the first YouTube live stream I've ever done. I hopped on just briefly before when the last guy was talking, and he didn't know what he was talking about, so I felt the need to go and correct. That led me right to your Discord about a half an hour ago, and then, I don't know, 20 minutes later, here I am.
What did you want to correct about what he said specifically? About the history of Israel, about the Jews in particular, or just everything?
Most of what he said was just not on the record, like not there. For one hand, the whole thing about the Talmud saying that Jesus is boiling an excrement, completely false. Rabbi David Rode exposes this in about 5 seconds flat. The whole quote that people like to use is from a place called Gittin, Gittin 57, if I'm not being mistaken, where it says a man named Yeshu was boiling in excrement. Now, a lot of Christian polemics want to say that that's Jesus, but if you go to Sota 47, a different tractate, a different book, you see the same person referenced, but it says that he lives 100 years before Jesus. And then you have a very similar occurrence in a place called Sanhedrin, which confirms that this man called Yeshu, the Nazarene, was actually the cult leader who started a group about 100 years before Jesus during the Hasmonean persecutions. He founded the militant arm of the Essenes, which was also a political group which was against King Yanai, again 100 before Jesus, and that group was called the Nazarenes. Nazareth was a small town, so the Nazarenes were a completely separate group from Nazareth, and they later merged during the first century with Christianity. So that's where you get a lot of the confusion, but Christianity, Jesus, not mentioned in the Talmud once.
That's a great explanation. So where did you get all that from? Just reading the Torah and studying, or?
So I had to study the Talmud for a long time. I'm Jewish, by the way. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm Jewish. Deal with that. So I had to read a lot of it when I was growing up, and then when people started attacking everything that I exist about, everything that I'm about, I had to go and learn more about what I was fighting for, what I was defending. And so that led me to a lot of rabbit holes in which I got to learn a lot of new things that I didn't know about my religion, about my people, about my history. And here I am today in front of you.
Do you study with some of the other guys in the other Discord about different anti-Semitic stuff, or do you study with do you do it on your own time, or do you do it with other people in the community, or a little bit of both?
No, so believe it or not, we don't actually talk about anti-Semitic conspiracies in the Jewish community. I had to learn all this on my own, going through a lot of historical records. The Protestant author and historian, Paul Johnson, you've heard of him? He wrote the foundational work, historical work, A History of Christianity, and then right afterwards, he wrote a book called The History of the Jews, which goes through about all 3,500 years, not sparing any detail. And so I had to read that work as well to get a foundational understanding of my own history, which unfortunately we're taught very little of. So,
do you yourself follow and believe the Talmud?
Well, there's no such thing as following and believing in the Talmud. It's not a law book. It's a basis of debates. If you wanted to go
From
follow
rabbis,
the laws,
right?
So let's go through that. The written word, which is as the Old Testament, was a companion of the oral law. So if you see a lot in the Old Testament, you see references to things which you wouldn't have no way of knowing. For example, you have totophos, right? You see totophos mentioned twice. I believe in Leviticus and again in Deuteronomy that Jewish men have to strap onto their arms and onto their head totophos. What are totophos? The oral law explains that is what Jewish people wear. It's called phylacteries, tefillin, right? You've seen the guys with the boxes on their heads and on their arms. That's what they take that to mean. Then you have other things like thou shalt not work on the Sabbath. What is it? What constitutes work? What counts as work? You have things such as pre-Eitz Hadar. So in the Old Testament, it commands Jews on the holiday of Sukkot to take for themselves many different things. Pre-Eitz Hadar, Arvei Nachal. It's referencing fruits and reeds. What are these things? So then you have obviously the need for what's called the oral law, which was passed down from Moses all the way down to until the time of Jesus, the prophets and then the Pharisees. And then you had a divergence in which you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The Sadducees were the literal people. I guess today you'd call them the Karaites, where you see a movement nowadays of Jews that just want to follow the Old Testament as is, no oral traditions, nothing. And they're called Karaites, which they clashed a lot with the Pharisees. The Pharisees clashed with Jesus a little bit. There were some mentions in the Gospels about them being very upset by him. But ultimately, what happened was the Sadducees, which were puppets installed by Herod Antipas, who was a puppet of the Romans, they corrupted the synod, which was the court. They corrupted the temple, and they were the ones ultimately behind Jesus' crucifixion, though there are some mentions of the Pharisees being involved in his arrest, though that's in John, and I can confess John, but as a practicing Christian, which you are, I don't think you want me to argue John with you. So, where was I going with this? Yeah, so that's the oral law. Now, of the oral law, you have the rabbinic arguments about what is the oral law. The oral law was given to Moses, to man, as we see also mentioned in the Old Testament. And the oral law is debated very heavily first in the Mishnah, then in the Talmud, and then the laws are not even in the Talmud. They're recorded, but they're not actually actual laws. It's more debates about, and a lot of times they have to take the devil's advocate, pardon the pun, but devil. They had to take the devil's advocate in order to get the root of what is the law. So a lot of what you see in the Talmud isn't law whatsoever. But then if you want to go and see what the laws actually are, you would have to go to works like the Mishnah Brura, the codified works of the Rambam, which is the Shulchan Aruch, and well, that's separate, but Shulchan Aruch, those are the actual books of all the laws, not actually the debates, which are the Talmud, but the actual laws themselves of the oral traditions. That is found in works like Mishnah Brura, Shulchan Aruch, not actually the Talmud. The Talmud is not law. Talmud is meant to be studied to understand how to interpret the Old Testament. So there's a lot of debates, and every single Jew has to study the
Hundreds of
Talmud.
years, right?
It's about 6 centuries worth of debates. So every Jew has to study the Talmud, not to actually internalize it, but to understand and get that into their psyche. If you have to actually go out and find the answers for yourself. When I was growing up, in every single Jewish school across America, Europe, everywhere, you're going to have the same exact thing, which is questions are wanted. All right, my rabbis, they would give me like candies and stuff if I asked a great question. Questions are essential to Judaism. You have to keep asking questions. Why? And so the foundation for that is the Talmud, which is arguably one of the greatest legal works ever produced of logic and debate in order to get to the root, right? Everything has to have a basis in the Old Testament. So the entire Talmud, you'll see references. This passage, this verse says this. So obviously we're talking about that. Then a different rabbi will come in and go, no, we're talking about this because this verse says that. And so that's where you have the conflict. So yeah, a lot of rabbinic laws are designed to protect the written law. So everyone I've seen online mentions the string that surrounds Jewish communities, the fishing line. You also have the selling of the Passover, on Passover, the selling of the breads so that you don't have them. Those are all rabbinic laws to circumvent other rabbinic laws so that people don't lose out, because those laws are only in place to safeguard God's law. So you can transgress a rabbinic law, so you shouldn't be you shouldn't violate God's law. So that's how that works. So people don't understand. They go, oh, you're loopholing God. You're not loopholing God. You're loopholing the rabbis, using the rabbi's own invention to make sure that you don't end up having issues within a community just because the law says so according to the rabbis, not God's law. That's where people get messed up all the time.
That's very interesting, but a little bit off topic of the whole studies of Judaism. What do you think about people like on YouTube and the internet crying about AIPAC over and over and over again when they don't even receive any money from Israel in the first
Okay.
place?
So I can go through AIPAC right now if you'd like. AIPAC is ranked 191 on the list of influential PACs. That means there's 190 PACs that are much larger than AIPAC. AIPAC is American citizen, so it doesn't have to register under FARA. All right, so everyone goes, oh, Kennedy, AIPAC. AIPAC rebranded anyways to only come from support from Americans, not from a foreign lobby. Now, the entire Jewish lobby in America right now constitutes 3% of total lobbying efforts. That's much, much more than every other country. Now, if you want to say that we should end all lobbying, 100% agree. But there's a double standard over there when it comes to AIPAC that doesn't exist everywhere else. Why is it that Qatar sends in tens of millions every single election campaign? China, UAE, Saudis, but no one has an issue with that. Everyone goes AIPAC. Why? Jews.
I'm just taking a look at the comments. Not too much
Yeah.
intelligence in here at the moment.
Well, I actually work in the weather department, and also I'm a liaison for the space laser course, so don't mess with me.
What do you think about? What do you think about? I mean, I know Israel is a very LGBTQ friendly place, like the only one in the Middle East. But what do you think about like? What do you think about Pride Month in general? Like, as being a Jew, do you think? Do you think you can be Jewish and be part of the LGBTQ community? I mean, obviously you can be ethnically Jewish, but as far as religiously,
Yeah. So as far as Judaism goes, we don't really endorse LGBTQ and all that stuff. That stuff is pretty much against the teachings of Judaism. Of course, you can be gay, but Jewish law specifically prohibits any sort of homosexual acts. That's what's straight up in every single Jewish text. So that's not allowed. This whole business also where people like to go and say Jews in the Talmud, there's eight genders. No, there's two genders. There always will be two genders. What the Talmud references is two genders, male, female, and then 6 instances of genetic abnormalities. So genetic people are born, it's horrible, but God created some people to have both parts, no parts, and all these other genetic malformities, but that's not gender. That's a genetic condition, not a gender. People make that mistake very, very easily. There's two genders, male, female, and God designed both to interact with each other, not the same sex.
this is a conspiracy theory that's already been disproven about 100 times. For the guy in the chats that is saying
Good.
Ashkenazi does not come from Abraham, that's been literally DNA tested, proven
Yeah, so
that they are.
You have the Stanford Institute of Medicine, you have most of the major studies that have been done since 2000 have actually proven that Jews have roughly 80%, Ashkenazi Jews have about 80% Levantine DNA. So that whole business is completely absurd, as well as Israel having a ban on DNA testing. That's just stupid. They they ban any companies that sell your private data. And if you use one of these companies that sell your private data, you're stupid. So there's that. But genetic studies have proven that Jews are Levantine. My personal DNA test through my heritage prove that I am Levantine.
Yeah, I was talking to an Israeli Jew yesterday, and he was telling me that about the DNA test there, and they're a little bit cheaper in America, but we have like these companies selling our. Like, I think I got mine done for like $30 or $40. His was like $250. But he doesn't have to worry about his DNA getting sold
It's
to
stupid.
anybody.
You know why? Okay, you know what IBM is, right? You know IBM, obviously.
Yeah. Hmm.
IBM during the World War II was used. They built dossiers on every single person in Germany. The Nazis went and used every single one of that to target Jews, Romani, outliers, people that were their political enemies. They used IBM software to find these people. Don't give your genetic DNA, your data to anybody ever. It's moronic.
Yeah, I have to agree. Here's a little bit. Here's a little bit of a anti-Semitic comment, I guess.
Go for
Someone
it.
asked me if you think that I am equal with you.
What kind of stupidity is that? Of course you are. Let me saying that's not going to help. Let me just prove that to you. Okay. Talmud says Jews and Christians and everybody that believes in God, as long as you aren't a complete, pardon my language, asshole, you go to heaven. Okay. So Jews, Gentiles go to heaven. Jews actually have a harder time going to heaven because we have 613 laws. You guys only have 7. That's right there. All right. The Talmud also says in numerous other places that you have to give charity. visit the sick, bless Gentiles, and pretty much be exceptional to them as opposed to just being exceptional to Jewish people. You have to do such kindness for the Gentiles, just like the Jews. There's no such thing as Jews being better than. Jews have a different responsibility. That's it. We have the 613. That is it. That is what means chosen. Chosen to follow the 613. That doesn't mean better. Okay, get it out of your stupid heads, you people. You want to say, you want to be, because that gives you an excuse to hate. But the second you realize that we don't believe that you are less than, we actually believe you are more than, maybe you'll get some sort of morality back to you.
Do you think any of the Jewish community has a superiority complex?
There may be one or two of the Hasidic communities that are like, because we have the 613, that means since we have a greater responsibility, that means we should get treated better. It's not a common theme. It's more of a minority, fringe of a fringe, belief. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. It definitely does exist, but it's so fringe, it's hardly recognizable.
I see what Chad is saying. I'm not going to ask you any questions about Gaza because you didn't seem to want to touch on that too much.
The only thing I can talk about on Gaza, because I don't really know a whole lot about it. It's not my forte. It's not what I usually debate. 130,000 births, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Gaza Health Ministry also says that there's been 72,000 deaths. 72,000, which includes natural death, people still under the rubble, people that have been killed by Hamas death, militia death. So I don't know about that. Again, every civilian death, that person that dies, every single civilian, every mother, every daughter, every son that dies is a tragedy beyond belief. It is a war. It doesn't justify the deaths, but don't make it out to be some sort of, I hate using the word, genocide.
Yeah. That's what I
So there's
found.
three ways that you can argue Israel. You have Israel, which is the biblical land promised to the Jews, which a lot of people here go, oh, 3,000, but again, that's stupid. You could go from the perspective of that there were Jews living in the land continuously and they fought a war for the land. So now they have the land. Or you can go from just a fact that it exists. What do you want to do about it? It exists. You don't think it should exist? Who cares? It exists. It meets all the criteria for a state. So does Somaliland, by the way, which nobody wants to recognize Somaliland, but it exists. It meets all the criteria for a state. Why should it not exist?
Would you call yourself a Zionist?
Only in the sense that I believe Jews should have a right to live in Israel. Every other aspect, the Zionist ideology, I don't really see myself agreeing with. Not because of any political reason, but more because of religious opinion.
How do you feel that most of Israel feels about Benjamin Netanyahu?
For one hand, I don't think he's the best president for the Israeli people right now. I think he's let them down many times. But on the other hand, if Bibi goes, then the leftists will come in. The way that the collision system works in Israel is that Bibi has the support of the Orthodox and the hardline conservatives. But the second that he leaves power, the coalitions are going to switch, and it's going to be the leftists in power. Now, the leftists in Israel are more or less like the conservatives in America, but still, it's not going to bode well for Israel's future. It's not going to bode well for anybody living in the land, and it's definitely not going to bode well for Israeli-American relations.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a comment that I wanted to address. I can't even find it now.
What, 109 countries? The gates of
No,
Toledo?
I don't really
Kill me.
care for
Give me a
that.
hard one. Give me a hard one.
Guys, give him a hard question. Drop it down below or drop a big super chat if you don't want me to miss it. But I'm trying to make sure I see every single comment.
Israeli psyop. Oh, people are dumb. You want me to answer the whole myth about America giving Israel a lot of money and all that stuff? I can answer that
Yeah.
pretty easily
I
also.
was gonna say you could talk about that.
Okay. So America gives a lot of countries foreign aid. Israel is by far the largest, right? But Israel is different than every other country that America sends foreign aid to, very simply because Israel has to give that money back. Now, the current MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that Israel has with America is that Israel is given 3.8 billion, and they have to spend 90% of that, which they spend pretty much 90% of that back into the American economy, plus an additional 4 billion in the last couple of years. So it works as a credit system where Israel is given money from America to buy older, well, current and older weapons, and that leads to Israel spending more in the United States. So far, they've increased their investment to about 24 billion. At the same time, you have Bird and Bar, which are both systems that combined have about 800 projects that have added about 10 billion to the U.S. GDP through working on joint technology uh, upgrades and all that stuff. What else we got here? All right. 270,000 American jobs created by Israeli tech venture startups in the United States. Nearly, I would say about half of the big American companies do their R&D in Eretz Israel. Israel's probably the largest R&D capital in the world after Beijing. What else do we got? We also got the free intel, the free upgrades to the missile defense system. You also have, what else? What else do we got? Let me think for a sec. What else do we got going on?
Someone said the 400 billion dollars alone was spent for on the war in Israel or something. I have no clue what he's talking about.
No idea. So 300 billion since Israel was founded. If you want to make that up, sorry, you want to adjust that for inflation, you might come to a higher number, sure. But what does America get out of it? A lot of free tech, a lot of good tech, a lot of venture capital in the United States, a lot of people buying from the US military industrial complex, which probably supports about 500,000 American high skilled jobs, and a lot of crucial states depend on it. What else you get? Oh, you get a lot of good stuff. Meanwhile, America gives foreign aid to how many countries that don't give us a dime back? If you want to
A
end it,
lot.
go for it. If you want to end foreign aid to Israel, I have zero problem. I think that American
Well,
foreign aid to
Benjamin
Israel is actually
Netanyahu
a
wants to
leash.
end it. Yeah, Benjamin
Yes, but then you
Netanyahu wants
also,
to end it.
but here's the thing: you have the congressional bill that's trying to get passed. I'm not sure which one it is. That's trying to join the tech efforts of the U.S. and Israeli armies. So for military and defense tech, they want to combine and share all the tech because, again, Israel has a lot of great tech. They're kind of leading the world in military tech at the moment. America has the manufacturing power. All right, Israel created the Iron Dome. America now manufactures a lot of the components of it. So it's been happening for how many years now that you have people? So you have joint cooperation between U.S. and Israel, and now they just want to do the same thing, but without the money being sent to Israel to mass purchase American weapons. So I see it as a win-win for America, to be honest.
So you think that's a good deal? You think our intelligence agencies should combine together?
Well, they already are, if you think about it. Israel already gives almost all of its intelligence to the U.S. Can the U.S. say that they give all their intelligence to Israel? Maybe,
We
but
didn't
that's
let
already going on.
Israel even look at the deal with Iran.
They're not even a signatory. So how is Israel controlling America that way? Answer that for me.
I don't know, but they're not even. They weren't even allowed to look at the deal that Trump was bringing towards the table for Iran. Why is that?
Oh, let's see, because Israel would never agree to the terms. Never, ever, ever agree to the terms. For one, it allows Hezbollah to keep shooting rockets and drones at them. So why would they ever agree to that?
Well, I guess you're right there. I don't know what they should do.
It's a sucky deal for America. I don't. Again, I care about Israel somewhat, but it's a sucky deal for America. Israel's going to survive. I'm not worried about Israel. For America, it's
So,
a
what do you
sucky,
think is going
sucky
to
deal.
happen now? What do you think is going to happen now? Do you think that we're going to go back into war with Iran?
If not in this next 60 days, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, but it's going to happen again. Why? Because the Iranians are, the IRGC is a bunch of terrorists. All they want to do is destroy, destroy, destroy. They don't care about any stupid deal. They don't care about any pinky promise. They want to destroy America. That's what they're going to try to do, no matter what you say, no matter what deal, no matter what agreement. It's not going to make a difference.
What sort of patriot is this? I don't know. I guess I'll let you answer for yourself.
Patriot? I
Yeah,
come from
what
a
kind of?
long line of Americans, pal. All right, 5 generations of Americans. 4 of my great uncles served in World War II. Only one came back. All right. Jews have been in the country since the 1600s, before there even was a country. All right, Jews helped build this country. We helped fight in the Continental War. All right, sorry, the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. America's first debt, all right, was bought out by a Jew, Haim Solomon. All right, Ironic.
Crazy.
Forget about World War II. You have over 1 million Jews serving in the American Armed Forces since the Revolutionary War. In Korea and Vietnam, you had a USS aircraft carrier named after a Jewish admiral, Admiral Nimitz. All right, sorry, the founder of the nuclear navy was a Jew. You have Tibor
What do
Rubin, who single-handedly killed probably about 2,000 Koreans. He got the Medal of Honor.
Two things. First off, get the likes up there, guys. We got 162 people in here with 24 likes, so please let's get the likes up to 100. Second off, we got a super chat here from FBA Young Lion. He says Israel dictates our foreign policy in the Middle East, whether we like it or not. What do you think about that? And also, thank you for the gift, Gigi. Go ahead.
What do I think
Let us know
about?
what you think. Yeah,
You think
that
Israel's
super chat.
controlling our foreign policy in the Middle East?
That's what he said. That's what he said. Like it or not.
Okay, let's go back to the Iraq-Iran war. Who's backing Iraq? The U.S., right? Who was secretly supplying Iran against Iraq, right? Because they thought the Iranians were going to get absolutely genocided by Saddam Hussein. Israel. There's been so many situations in the Middle East in which Israel and America did not align on politically, and America did what was in its best interest, as it should. All right. There's been so much people saying that Israel controls our foreign policy in the Middle East. All right, it's so stupid. We've been involved there since they first attacked us back when America was first a country. So stupid.
Yeah, he
If
said
Israel
we
controlled
we
America,
go
let me
ahead.
ask you a question. If
Go ahead.
Israel controlled America's foreign policy, would they have let America, right, have the first Iran deal, the JCPOA, which gave how much money to Iran to fund its proxies? All right,
Billions of
how far
dollars.
along? 300 billion, my friend.
Yeah.
To fund their proxies to wage war against Americans. Americans. Did Israel force Iran to kill 1,000 Americans? I don't think so. Israel is not involved in this. America is involved in the Middle East because how much of our oil comes from the Middle East? It's that simple. You think if Israel didn't exist, America wouldn't be involved in the Middle East? Come on. That's stupid, stupid thinking. The way I see it, Israel is the little flea that if it gets, if the entire Arab world gets rid of it, it's just going to lead to a flood, right? It's like the little cork holding back the contents of the bottle from being poured out onto the Western civilization. If Israel goes, the rest of the world is going to suffer greatly for it. All right. As long as all the Arab frustrations are pent up about Israel, they don't have enough energies to direct towards the West in any meaningful way. Obviously, they have infiltrated the West. All right. Let's not delude ourselves. They are in the West, but they haven't had the ability to act as boldly, as brazenly as they would do if Israel wasn't there.
Here we go. Another super chat from the same guy again. FBA Young Line says it was all strategic. The USA was backing Saddam while Israel was simultaneously selling weapons in Iran, hence the Iran Contra scandal.
Yep. Iran was using gas. All right. Now, I don't like Iran the RGC as much as anyone else, but if you're using gas on a population that hates the IRGC, even just because they're Iranians, I think that's stupid. Israel sold defensive weapons only defensive weapons to Iran, so they wouldn't get absolutely obliterated. All right. If you look at, there's a territory in Iran called Qazvin. All right, Qazvin. Search it up. They had a massive earthquake, massive earthquake before the Islamic Revolution. The entire region was practically destroyed. You know who came in there to rebuild it up? Not just rebuild it up, but find survivors, do surveys of the existing structures, see how stable they were, helped to rebuild all the agriculture in the area. Israel, Albania, 2019, was it 2019? Also an earthquake. Who went in there to help rebuild up Albania after their earthquake? Humanitarian missions all over the world. No one says a thing. All they look at is war. No one
He
cares.
said you're
How about
wrong.
the?
Iran used that chemical weapons on the Iranians.
He did use chemical weapons. He used gas.
He said it was Iraq, though, not the Jews or not the Israelis.
No, that's what I said. I said that Iraq was using chemical warfare on Iran, and Israel supplied defensive weapons to Iran.
These live streams are always more civilized than liberal live streams. It's refreshing. Well, thank you.
Listen, I know a lot of people in the comments are not going to think that I'm America first just because I'm Jewish. If America went tomorrow, I'd be very upset about it, sure. But if America went tomorrow to destroy Israel, as an American citizen, I can protest, but ultimately, what can I do about it? All right? I'm not sending money to Israel. I would love for Israel to be a great friend of the United States and continue to be a great friend of the United States. And, God willing, they should be best friends and support each other like they do, like they have. But when it comes to this whole Iran business right now, America has to do what's in its best interest. So if that means settling with Iran, even though I think it's a big mistake, I have to respect that. All right? That's America first, and that's what I have to do because I'm America first. That's something that I'm willing to do. All right? But as many of you don't seem to be America first, you seem to be Israel last. That's a very callous position to take.
Well, a couple things. First off, someone says, "How the f will the USA destroy Israel if they have AIPAC?" But if you had to choose loyalty of America over or Israel, and one of the ones have to get destroyed, you're telling me you're gonna pick America?
Okay, first of all, again, why are we back on AIPAC? 130 million over the last entire election cycle. How much did Qatar contribute in the last election cycle? Probably over $1 billion. Enough with the stupidity about AIPAC. They're the most insignificant thing on the planet. All right, them, the ADL, they're all insignificant. You make them out to be like these big corporations that are controlling the government. If you can control the government for 130 million, what? Did Jews get a special discount? Come on, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. I agree with you. I'm just reading comments.
Yes.
Fake Israelite cosplay? What are you talking about?
You reading comments?
Yeah, that's what someone
I'm
said.
not Israeli. All right, I'm an American. I'm an American first. I'm not Israeli. I think Israel has a lot of good it could do for the world. All right. I was actually just reading that 51 countries globally are using Israeli drip irrigation techniques and are trained in Israel on farmland irrigation techniques. A lot of countries are using desalination technology to improve freshwater resources developed in Israel. Israel's improving defense technology for the entire world, teaching the world how to defeat terrorism. What else do you want?
But have you ever visited Israel before?
I went when I was very, very young. Yeah.
That's awesome. Unfortunately, I'm sure you would have wanted to go back in the recent years, but you can see what's happening, obviously.
Well, I would love to go see all the holy sites and all that, but there's so much interesting stuff. Last time I was there, I remember the tour guide pointing out to us. You know how in the Bible it says that God said that the land will bloom, right? Milk and honey and all that. The entire land was barren for many, many years, just rock and sand. And now you see that the land is literally sprouting again. Not just sprouting, but flourishing, growing. All right. Around all the homes, you see trees. There was one area in a place called Mitzpeh Yericho, right, Jericho, where you literally feel like you're in a forest, but then you walk 3 seconds outside the town limits, you're back in desert. How does that happen?
That's crazy. I don't know. The irrigation technology of Israel, I guess. Did you ever consider joining the IDF when you turned 18?
No, I would never fight for another army non-American.
Do you have problems with other Jews that do go do that, or no?
It's their prerogative.
Fair enough. That's respectable.
Though I do think that if you're going to fight in the IDF, you should probably, stay in Israel.
They should renounce
Though
their citizenship.
I can't judge, right? But you can't have dual loyalty, right? I mean, yeah, America and Israel are allies, but dual. This is my critique. I say you can't expect, people that go serve in IDF to say that, oh, I don't have dual loyalty. But then you see people like who do we have? All right, for example, okay, Dan Bilzerian, right? That moron. All right, that moron went to serve in Armenia, right? He went to go fight in the Armenian army, but he's preaching about dual loyalty, right? Now, it happens to be, I think that if you go serve in another army, you know, that is dual loyalty. I think dual loyalty is bad. I can't hold him to that standard and not say Jews that go serve in the IDF, you should also have that, you shouldn't have that standard. You should have that standard also. If you're going to fight for a foreign army, you should at least go and stay there, you know, get their citizenship, renounce your American citizenship. You can't have two countries. You cannot serve two masters.
So you're against dual citizenship?
100%.
What if it's just somewhere like a second home from someone like a vacation home, but they're not like they don't have any allegiance to the country? You think just holding a passport is too much loyalty, or that it's just going to be confusing on figuring out who's crossing what lines?
Once you open up the gateway to dual citizenship, then you can't really start defining, okay, what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. You understand? For example, Ilhan Omar, she probably has Somalian dual citizenship, right? I can't criticize her for that and not criticize Jews for having dual loyalty or Christians for having dual citizenship with Israel. I can't criticize her and not criticize them. I'm not going to be the purveyor of double standards here.
Well, they don't legally have to tell you if they have dual citizenship or not, but as far as we know, no one has dual citizenship in Congress.
You don't have to declare it. That's actually not true. You don't have to declare if you have dual citizenship in Congress.
Yeah, that's what I just
Right
said.
now,
You don't have to declare it.
so there's no proof if anybody has dual citizenship with Israel. There's no proof that anyone has dual citizenship with any other country. Obviously, some we can make inferences, but there's no proof.
Yeah, there is none. But what do you think about like what's that guy's name? Randy Fine.
That guy, I would
Yeah.
say 50-50. I have no idea if he does or doesn't.
What do you think about no, I'm saying like what do you think about about the American Jewish politicians? Like what are your thoughts on them?
There's Jewish politicians, there's black politicians, there's Asian politicians, there's Hispanic politicians. Why should I care about Jewish politicians?
No, but I mean, are you like a fan of them, or do you think that they're like for a Jew? Do you think that they're too like political in certain ways? Like I'm sure you know like
Policy
Ted
wise,
Cruz. I don't know if he's Jewish, huh? Is Ted Cruz
like
Jewish?
Ted Cruz? No,
Yeah,
Ted
is he
Cruz is not
Jewish?
Jew. Yep.
Okay, he's just very pro-Israel. Okay, but the other guy, Randy Fine, is Jewish, I believe. I think, right or no?
Yep.
What do you think of like apparently they're making a big deal and saying that he has dual allegiance because after October 7th, he wore an IDF uniform to Congress, but he never
Proof.
served in the IDF. He never
Yeah, I'm saying
served
you
in
can
the
say he has
IDF.
dual loyalty. That's your prerogative under the First Amendment, but proof?
Yeah, fair enough. But you think Ben Guyver is just a like too much of an Iraqi racist Jew politician?
Ben Gvir, Smotrich, most of them are just horrible people. Not just because they're racist, but because they have no regards for Palestinian life. And that's why a lot of Israel is completely split on them. A lot of people were angry after October 7th. A lot of people were angry about the hostages. And so they got found an audience there, right? They found people that shared their ideological views. And now a lot of Israel is sort of moving away from them because they've sort of calmed down a bit. Now, as far as them still holding positions in the government, I can't see that lasting.
So you think they're gonna get kicked out? What about Benjamin Netanyahu? You think he's gonna get charged with war crimes, or you think he's gonna get let off after everything? I mean, he's running for election right now in 2026. So
Yeah, the sentiment against Bibi right now is that he's not. This is the Israeli sentiment about Bibi. He's not strong enough to stand up to America. That's the position that a lot of Israelis have about Bibi, is that he cowers to Trump. He's Trump's little puppet, which in a lot of ways is true. That's the Israeli sentiment about Bibi. They think that he's 100% under Trump's thumb. So much so that the protests after October 7th and about his inability to get back the hostages right away led to massive support for his rivals. So I don't see his coalition lasting that long. And if he, goes to jail for war crimes either under Israeli law or under international law, don't care.
Oh well. But it's kind of like they're perfectly targeting. They're making us fight each other because they're telling Jews in Israel are saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is controlled by Trump, and Christians in America are saying that Donald J. Trump is controlled by Israel. So it's like a
If the if the latest events
perfect
aren't enough
storm.
to disprove or dispel the idea that Israel controls America, then reevaluate your worldview a little bit,
They're still not going to believe me. There's nothing I can tell them ever, and there's nothing I can ever tell them to change their opinion on that.
It's hard to convince somebody that they've been fooled, right? All right. Hit me with another one. Come on. I'm going on a roll here.
I wanted to ask you more or less a question about yourself. Are you in a university? You don't have to say where or anything like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I
You
also work 3 jobs.
study 3 jobs?
Yep.
What do you do? What do you
So I
study?
started off. So while I first started college, I was working as an EMT. Uh, then I made the switch about a year ago to not only do that but teach as well. I teach EMT classes now. I actually work very intimately with the Hatzalah organization in New York. You know the Hatzalah?
I've heard of it before,
It's an
but
amazing
explain it to anyone
organization.
that doesn't know.
All right, so Hatzalah was a volunteer ambulance company because early on in I think it was the 90s or was the late 80s, or maybe even earlier, uh, ambulance companies, FDNY, would not show up to any emergencies in the Jewish community. So that led the Jewish community to create their own ambulance service. And it's not just an ambulance service. The idea is modeled, I'm not sure which came first, United Hatzalah or Hatzalah, but the idea is very simple. How many of your neighbors are doctors, nurses, EMTs, paramedics? Now, imagine God forbid, you have an emergency, right? God forbid that you are in a life threatening emergency and you have to wait now for what, 3 minutes for an ambulance? Or you can just call a hotline number and that'll send out your location, what's going on with you, to anybody that's nearby, eliminating response time from 3 minutes to under 90 seconds. So that's what Hatzalah is. It's very, very successful in Jewish communities around the world. It's very successful in Israel as well. They have about 8,000 volunteers that are Christians, Muslim, Jews, that they're alerted to an emergency near them. 90 seconds, they're on scene anywhere in the country. And they use something called ambucycles in Israel, which are like these little mini motorcycles that have everything you could possibly need to save a life. So in America right now, you have organizations within every Jewish community, founded by Jews, paid for by Jews, and most of the volunteers are Jews, to be honest. But if it's in the community, they'll respond to it. We had a emergency not even a week ago where a Christian couple in Brooklyn, God forbid, sorry, not God forbid, they had an emergency, whatever it was, and Hatzalah was on scene within seconds. So it's anybody within the community, any emergency within the community, they rush there. Now, I do know that this exists for CPR in a lot of America, but I don't think that it's ever been utilized to this extent anywhere except for Jewish communities. So volunteers, professionals, people that don't work for EMS, but spend the money, spend the time to train themselves how to respond to an emergency so they can help their community. That's what Hatzalah is. So I do that, and then I also started working at a medical center about a year ago to balance out my income because I don't know if anybody knows this, but EMTs and EMT instructors, we do not get paid a lot. So that needs to change also because we are currently the lowest paid people in the medical profession. So even the janitors make more than us. So we got to change that too.
Are you in university for medical studies?
No, so I actually am going for my liberal arts degree right now with a minor in law because I'm Jewish. That means I have to become a lawyer.
There's
I
another
started
there's
the.
an interesting this there's an
I
interesting
actually.
lawyer in the chats in my Discord, and he's Jewish, but his mother's Jewish. He's Jewish. He's not a practicing Jew. He's kind of self-hating Jew. Maybe
We
you
have
could
those
talk to
two.
him. I don't know, but he's kind of far gone. He's kind of too far
No,
gone. But you might
I
see him.
found that self-hating Jews more often are worse than every freaking liberal on the planet combined. There's no changing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless God comes down and gives them some divine inspiration or shakes them up a bit, there's no changing them.
Might consider antagonizing, like ask you about Gaza or what you think about IDF soldiers, like allegedly, doing harmful things to women and children, which I don't know how much truth there is to those, but war crime or crimes of war always happen, but that's on a case by case basis. It doesn't mean a whole country is bad.
There's a website out there. All right. Now, I'm not saying that this is every single scenario. Obviously, a lot of bad stuff happens, but it's being exaggerated to the extent that people are marching down streets all over the world, chanting genocidal slogans, hate, bile, and anti anti democracy, anti capitalism, and that's just an outlet for them. All right. If you go onto this website, it's called Gaza Wood. Now, I'm not saying that it's 100%, you know, but a lot of what you see on TikTok, on Instagram, a lot of the stories, they're exposed. They're exposed because a lot of it doesn't happen. A lot of what you hear and all this horrible stuff, a lot of it is fake. Okay? A lot of it's fake. Now, I'm not saying a lot of it isn't real, but a lot of it is fake. A lot of it is. You can't deny that. Now, if you want to believe it, believe it. I don't care. I don't have the energy to argue.
Well, they always say, "Oh, what about the women and children of Gaza? What about the women and children of Gaza?" But they care about October 7th. They
I
wouldn't
have a lot
show
to
any
say about
mercy.
that,
It
but I
doesn't
won't.
matter who attacked. It doesn't matter who attacked the Jews first. They wouldn't show any sympathy.
You know who Hassan Nasrallah is, right?
No, I know who Hassan Piker is.
Hassan Nasrallah was the leader of Hezbollah until Israel recently exterminated him. He said, and this is a direct quote: "The way that we will beat the Jews is because they love life and we love death." All right, that's why we will win. That's what he said. We love death, they love life. That's all I have to say about that. No, I can support them. It's just arguing them usually leads to a lot of nothing. Because you won't concede to my worldview and I won't concede to your worldview, so why argue it? Is that not a fair point? Okay, Frank. Well, you need to better work on your arguments and also learn a little bit more about your religion because you made a fool of yourself. No, I'm proud. I'm proud. You can come. You can try to kill me just because you hate me. I don't care. Till you have the knife on my throat, I will never be ashamed of who I am. I will not just not be ashamed of who I am. I will be proud of who I am. So I don't care. All right. I'm gonna have a family. I'm gonna get a wife. I'm gonna have kids. I'm gonna build a business. All right. I'm gonna live my life. And if you want to take that away from me, go for it. But I will never, ever, ever renounce who I am.
Yeah, it's very respectable. Someone said host is speechless. I'm not very speechless. He said, I'm Frank, I'm not Jewish. There we go again. He's denying being Jewish again. But I support and love you. Jews are great. That's what he said. But he denies being Jewish again. So I mean, if he's not Jewish, do you blame him for some of the lack of his knowledge? Or is there anything you wanted to point out specifically that he said now that he's in here and listening?
Well, I think I already raised the whole Jesus burning in hell stupidity, which he didn't know much about. And then also there was the whole business with the Crusades. The Crusades actually did kill Jews, but not really in the Holy Land, more on the path to the Holy Land. They wiped out whole communities. And that was really the Templars, not all of the Crusaders, just the Templars, really. So he didn't know that either.
But
Now,
I
if
was
you want
reading
to go on
about
to,
the Jewish population. It said it dwindled to 5,000 during the Crusades. I thought they must have attacked and the population got that low.
well, the Holy Land didn't have a whole lot of Jews at that point. And they were protected under Saladin, and they were protected again under Baldwin, I believe.
Oh yeah, this was during the Ottoman Empire, wasn't it?
No, this is during the Crusades. But there's always
Was
been
that
pogroms,
before or
there's always
after the
been
Ottoman Empire?
massacres during the Ottoman Empire, before the Ottoman Empire, going all the way back to the Romans, and then there was the whole Byzantine era, where the Byzantine era, there wasn't a whole lot of Jews left in Israel at the time. And the Byzantine Christians clashed very heavily with the Jews, massacres on both sides there. And then there was the whole Europe, Middle East. It's happened all over. 3,500 years of it, and you still haven't gotten rid of us. You must be really bad at it. Not you personally. I'm talking about the people in your comments and the people that are going to watch this. 3,500 years. What did Mark Twain say about this? Mark Twain said every empire had crumbled to stardust and faded away, yet the Jew is immortal. The Jew is immortal.
Oh, here we go again. He says, I'm Frank, and in Talmud it says the Jesus is burning and a container of poop. What? What?
He's a moron. All right. Anybody watching this at home? All right. It says a guy named Yeshu is burning an excrement in Gittin 57, right? Now, the problem with saying that that's Jesus is that if you go to Sota 47 or if you go to Sanhedrin that talks about Yeshu, you see very clearly that he was a guy that lived 100 years before Jesus, during the time of the Hasmonean dynasty. He was a student of Ben Parachia, and he was resisting the king Yanai as part of the cult called the Nazarenes. Nazareth was a tiny town, right? The Nazarenes were a cult that were founded before that as a military faction of the Essenes. Okay, I don't know how I have to say this. All right. He was guilty of being a necromancer and he was stoned. Does that sound like the Gospels to you? No. Yeshu was the name Bob back then. Everyone was called Yeshu. Okay? Same goes for Miriam. You know what people are called
How do
Mary?
you feel about Jesus in general?
I can't have an opinion. Not because I don't want to have an opinion, just because I don't have one. I think he was a rabbi. All right? That's just what I believe. I think he was a rabbi. Was he the Messiah? I can't believe he's the Messiah until he completes the criteria mentioned in the Old Testament for the Messiah. The literal ones. So that's just what I believe. Christians believe differently. Go for it. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. All right. It's not saying that I don't believe that people have had experiences in which they've seen Jesus. I'm not saying that people don't have moments of faith where they see a divine person. I'm not saying that there aren't instances in which God reaches out and he could take the form of anything. I'm not saying all that. I'm saying is me personally, I don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah until he meets the criteria. All right. Now, if the end of times Jesus comes back, second coming, we'll believe it's the first coming. Praise the Lord and hallelujah. What do you want me to do right now, though? For right now, he hasn't met the criteria, and so I can't accept him as the Messiah until he does. That's it.
He's now asking you. He says, "I'm Frank. Have you seen the debate of the Ramban and Meshamad?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Meshamud?
How do you spell it?
Let's see. Meshumed.
Where is this?
Ronald John Bront. That's the guy. You guys scroll up a little bit.
The Rambam and the Meshumit? I don't know who the Meshumit is. The Rambam was the guy named the Rambam Maimonides. He was known as the second Moses. He was the one who codified the Jewish law and outlined the criteria for the Messiah from all the sources in the Old Testament. And his translation of who the Messiah is not a God figure, but actual just a man. And that's what most Jews believe right now.
What do Jews think about black Israelites?
If they want to be Jews, why don't they go and follow the commandments? You can claim a heritage, but why don't you act it?
Well, do you believe that there are black Jews or no?
Of course, there's black Jews. Black Israelites, I don't know who that hate group is, but there's Ethiopians. There's about 2 tribes that went to Africa, the Bnei Sena, the Bnei Menashe. Happens to be a lot of them are going back to Israel now. They've been gathered up from exile, and they're going to Israel.
So they're part of the original tribes, you believe?
The original 12, 100%.
So there are black
You understand?
Israelites.
Yeah, of course. But this hate group, I don't know if any of them are actually Israelites. They just claim something. It doesn't actually mean it's true. They don't practice any of the Jewish faith. They don't have any Jewish traditions. Why should I believe that they're actually Jews?
But
All right.
Ethiopians are like, is there like a population in Israel, like an Ethiopian neighborhood with?
Massive, not a separate neighborhood, but yeah, there's a massive, massive community of Ethiopians in Israel. There's also
What about
Yemenites. There's
Nigeria?
also Kaifeng, which is in China. You also have Cochin from India. You also have from South America. You have Jews from all over the world. Jews come in all shapes, sizes, creeds, and races.
Is it because they were a part of like? Is it because you believe? Do you think like the original 13 tribes were?
12.
Sorry, 12. Do you believe the 12 original tribes were? Do you believe that they were like Middle Eastern, or do you believe like they were black skinned? Some of them.
Well, they were a massive mix. You had people that were dark skinned, people that were light skinned. You had people that most of Jews right now that are alive today are look Middle Eastern happens to be. But if you go through it, the reason why a lot of Jews that are Ashkenazic are white is because of a bottleneck that happened a long, long time ago, where only 55 families remain. That's where the whole stupidity about inbreeding comes in. It was founded on a grain of truth because you had 55 families that were left of European Jewry. They intermarried, and that's why some Jews have genetic diseases that are prevalent amongst them. Happens to be there's organizations right now that are like Dor Yeshorim. Dor Yeshorim is a organization that before you go out and start dating, you give them a sample of your DNA. And so anytime you want to date somebody, you just ask them, hey, can you cross reference my DNA with theirs to see if there's going to be any genetic diseases born from this union? So that's something that we're doing to try and get rid of that. But it did happen because of a bottleneck about, probably about 1800 to 1700 years ago.
Frank really wants to debate you badly.
I don't
Frank,
care.
what do you want to debate him so badly about? Please tell me. I mean, what did he say that was wrong?
If he wants to debate some Hasidic nonsense, I don't have the patience for him. This dude, what is he going to bring up? The Baal Shem Tov? Someone in the comments said Israelis are not native to the land. Okay, then how come every single major DNA study done about the Jews in Israel and Jews in general at large show that they're Levinson?
I'm just trying to figure out what you disagree about, Frank. If tell me what you disagree about, and
Yeah, come
we
on,
can
Frank.
decide from there.
Come on, Frank.
So you're telling me there's Chinese Jews? What about Japanese?
Funny enough, there's actually, you know that the religion, there's one of the religions in Japan. In Japan is called the Shinto religion, right? The Shintos have a lot of traditions that you can trace back to the original Israelites. as well as about 200 words. There's a rabbi named Marvin Tukayer. He actually documented all the origins that he discovered in Japan from the original Israelites. They do something called token, which is they have this little horn that they blow, which is very similar to a shofar. They wear fringes on the garments like we do, which we call tzitzit. Um, they do this procession where they walk around with a looks like an Ark of the Covenant. They do a lot of things that are very similar to Jews.
Sorry, I was getting a call. I told him I was on stream, but I was still listening.
What time is it, by the way? Let's see.
Someone said the anti-Semitism is wild here. Is it 2026 or is it 1926?
It's never
Do
gonna
you
go
agree
away.
with?
It's never gonna. Do I agree
Is
that it's
that
getting to
that's
that
not
point?
something you tried to?
Probably. You got me for another about 10 minutes, all right? 10 to 15
Okay,
minutes.
cool. If you guys have any good questions, comments, whatever you want to talk about, let me know. You heard him. He has 10 minutes left. They're always asking about the expulsion of the Jews. What do you have to say about that? Because they're trying to say that the Jews are bad people because they got kicked out of a lot of countries.
Okay, so the 109 countries, that thing? That
Yeah.
one? Okay.
Yep.
Let's start
Exactly.
off as an. All right, I'll go through that right now. I'll dispel that one. They won't care, but let's get the truth out there. 109 countries myth started on an Australian blog post. It was taken down. Let's start off with the list. You have the first names on the list were Judea and Samaria, which are where our Jews are from. So Jews were kicked out of their own land. They weren't, kicked out of someone else's. Okay. Then you go through the entire list. You find that there aren't countries. You see towns, cities, territories. The idea of a country didn't exist until relatively recently, the last 120 years. That's a little bit longer than that, 150 years. All right. And then you have a lot of places that are repeated, like England, like places in Germany that are just repeated again and again. And let's go through this logical argument. 3,500 years, right? That's how long Jews have been around for? 3,500 years? 3,500 years, 109 places kicked out of. That's not a lot if you think about it. If you want to apply that same logic, the Nazis were kicked out of 50 countries in 2 years. Okay? Now, a lot of the reasons from the Middle Ages were because Jews were accused of usury, which, if you look into it, and I suggest you do, Jews were kicked out of a lot of other professions. They weren't allowed to do a lot of things, and the church needed interest because if you don't have interest, an economy will not grow and will starve and die. So they made the Jews do it. The Jews, and there were also some groups like the Medici families in Italy that were very big banking clans. They were Christian, but they didn't adhere to the church. But Jews were forced into that role. Did Jews get rich off of it? No, because whenever a king wanted to borrow money, or the church wanted to borrow money, or anyone wanted to borrow money, and they accrued a big enough debt, you know what would happen? Kill them or exile them. That will get rid of the debt. The other thing was the Black
This
Plague.
guy
The Black
asks.
Plague.
This is
Wait,
sorry.
hold on, almost done.
Go ahead.
The Black Plague also, they claimed the Jews were poisoning the wells. No, Jews were still dying from the Black Plague. They weren't dying as much because they actually had sanitary conditions. Most of Middle Europe was pretty disgusting. Jews washed their hands before every meal, before prayers, before going to sleep. So Jews actually had sanitary conditions, and so they didn't get transmitted the disease as much as the Gentile neighbors. That led them to being accused of witchcraft and a lot of other things. All right, so you go through the 109 countries, you find a lot of them were bad empires. A lot of them also kicked out a bunch of other minorities at the same time as the Jews. A lot of it was leaving due to war or famine. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. And if you have any sort of historical knowledge and you go through each one, you find out that how stupid it is. I saw some person saying that Jews were kicked out of Babylon for child sacrifice. Okay, so you had Ezekiel, you had Josiah, who did accuse, did try to get the Jews to stop doing child sacrifice before, was it during the first temple? The Babylonians conquered and they went to Babel. They went to Babylon and they came up with the laws to prevent that ever happening again because many people were worshiping Canaanite idols. That's where this whole Baal and Moloch stuff comes from, eradicated while they were in Babylon. So they went to Babylon. They were like, okay, we messed up. We messed up big time. They fixed themselves, went back to the land, rebuilt the second temple. Did God allow them to build the second temple? If they didn't, hadn't, changed their ways, would God have allowed them to build the second temple? Answer that. All right, next question. Yeah.
Is your guest a Zionist? This was the self-hating Jew I was telling you about. His mother's Jewish. He's a lawyer, and you're going into you're eventually going to law school as well. So you want to become a lawyer. He's a lawyer. He's not a fan of the Jews, even though he's Jewish. But he asked, "Are you a
Depends on your
Zionist?"
definition. Depends on your definition of Zionist. If you mean Zion, meaning that I believe that the land is for the Jews, that God promised the land, and that the land will be settled by Jews. Yeah. Do I believe in the government or the ideology? No. But do I believe that the land was promised to the Jews? Yes. If that makes me a Zionist, so be it.
FBA
But
Young
hey,
Lions
hold
says,
on.
"Why?" Go ahead.
Any Muslim out there, any Christian, your Bible says the exact same thing, that the land belongs to the Jews. All right. Whether you believe the prophecy is being fulfilled nowadays, that the Jews will be gathered up from the exile and brought back to Israel, or whether you're Muslim and you believe in the Quran, and the Quran actually says this in Surah Al Ma'idah, it says that the land belongs to the Jews. So either way, if you don't believe that Jews have a right to live in the Holy Land and they should be living in the Holy Land, you're either a bad Christian or you're a bad Muslim. And if you don't believe it as a Jew, you're a bad Jew.
He said, "Why does Orthodox Judaism not accept Jesus, and why has there been documented incidents of some ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel spitting on Christians?"
Okay, let's go through the first one. Why are Orthodox Jews not accepting of Jesus? Because we don't believe that we don't believe that he fulfilled the prophecies that are outlined in Ezekiel and we call him Hezekiah. You guys call him probably Hezekiah, I think. Or Isaiah, or the prophecies of Jeremiah. We believe that he hasn't fulfilled the three major ones, and one other one which is debated. He hasn't brought all the Jews back. He didn't bring all the Jews back to the Holy Land. He did not rebuild the third temple, and he was not of the biological line of David through his father. So those are the three big ones right there. Now Christians can say that it's metaphorical. The church is actually the third temple, and nowadays you see that the prophecy is being fulfilled because Jesus in heaven is sending the Jews back to Israel. Or you could say that it was legal and not actually biological, that he was the son, the descendant of David. Whatever you want to believe, we just believe differently. Now, what was the other part of that question? The other part of the question
About the
was,
Orthodox, some incidents documented of Orthodox Jews
oh
in
yeah,
Israel
so there
spitting
are
on
extremists.
Christians.
Yeah, yeah. There's a place in Mea Shearim where there's a lot of extremist Jews, and there has been some documented cases of Jews spitting on and spitting near or at Christians carrying the cross or openly preaching in their streets. Again, I'm not going to justify it. I think it's wrong, but you do have to understand that these people have dealt with missionaries targeting their children a lot of their lives, and they don't like it. But you do also have to realize that Christianity is only growing in one place in the Middle East, and that's in Israel. All right, you have massive amounts of Messianic Jews, you have massive regular communities of Jews, and you have Greek Orthodox, you have the Roman Orthodox, you have the Russian Orthodox, you have a lot of Christians in Israel, about 160,000 of them, and the number's only going up. So dispel any of that stupidity out of your mind.
Does your guest believe that opposition to ethno states, including Israel, is anti-Semitic? We can't stipulate that Muslim ethno states suck too. We can't stipulate that Muslim ethno states suck too. That's what he's saying. You want me to read it again? Does your guest believe that the opposition to ethno states, including Israel, is anti-Semitic? Any opposition to any ethno states, do you believe that's
Any critique
anti-Semitic
or any
against
wait,
opposition?
any critique or believing that it should exist at all? Of course, you can
He's just
critique
saying,
Israel without it being anti-Semitic. I think that
yeah, but
Jews
he's
are
saying
overly
opposition
sensitive
to
and
the
use the
ethno
word
state in general. Is opposition to the
to the
ethno state
idea
anti-Semitic?
of an ethno state.
Like separating Jews and the idea of their homeland, is that anti-Semitic to believe in that?
Me personally, I could care less. If you wanted to get into the nitty gritty of that, it's the only Jewish state to ever exist in the world after the kingdoms of Israel. Hating on it just because it exists, I would say that's anti-Semitic. But if you want to critique the government, that's not anti-Semitic. If you want to critique the policy, you want to critique the war, you want to critique the people, that's not anti-Semitic. Saying that Jews don't have a right to live in their ancestral homeland, yeah, I would say it's anti-Semitic. But
He
that
said he
word's
doesn't
so
believe any
broadly
state
used
has
that
a
it doesn't
right
mean
to
anything anymore.
exist.
Any state has a right to exist. If you can defend a state,
Right?
then it exists. All right. If you have a democracy or if you have some sort of government, you have a people, you have a military, you have institutions, then you have a right to exist. That's stupid.
I agree with you 100%. But then he's gonna say, does that mean might means right? Like he's gonna say, does that mean might mean
means
right?
right.
Yeah, if you have more power, does that mean you can do whatever you want to do and defend your country just because
No,
you
of
have
course
power? You
not.
can take over other
Of
countries.
course not. There has to. This is what I love about democracy. Democracy holds itself to account. It doesn't need other people to hold it to an account. If you go to Israel right now, you'll have so many political parties and so many groups and so many people that have so many differing opinions about how the country should be run. You have B'Tselem, which is like the most anti-Zionist group there is, that are, an organization. You have leftists, you have right, you have
Well,
hardliners, you
people
have
love quoting. What do they call it? Sell them. Hey, Chris, make it
B'Tselem. Yeah.
a 20.
What I'm
But
saying is,
guest just wants to
democracy
study
takes
the
care of
Bible.
itself. Democracy
But
is a system that prevents might is right. All right. Now, if you want to say that Israel is an ethno state, despite it having a lot of minorities that have full equal rights, go for it.
sorry,
Jews
say
have
that
to be
last
in
part one
control
more
of
time.
Israel in order for them to live in peace. All right. The whole idea of Israel is that Jews have to be the majority. All right. That doesn't mean that other people can't come in, but Jews have to be the majority. Otherwise, they're going to get kicked out of their own land. They're going to have to deal with questions about whether they should be allowed to have a homeland to begin with. And that's why Jews have to have a majority in the country. Same way that America has to be majority American, or Spain has to be majority Spanish. There has to be an accounts and balances system. You have to have a majority. Country has to be majority of that people in order to maintain of that people. It's that simple, right?
So what about the Muslim politicians inside of Israel, or like the guy in Congress or whatever it is in Israel? You know what
The
I'm talking
defense
about?
minister, Ben Gvir.
No,
Who
not
are you
just
talking
him.
about?
I think it's in Congress as well. But I do have one guest that would like to just ask you a couple hard questions because I know you have to go here. So if you could just answer like one or two
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, for like 4 or 5 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here. Let me... Second, Graham, okay, hold on a second. 1 second. Okay, he said 1 second, but he has to leave in 4 or 5 minutes, just so you know. I respect that. You know, I want to be able to hear him. Hold on 1 second. Let me just turn on my computer.
Okay.
Someone asks, is Palestine a state? You never think
Recognized
it's
by the UN.
Just
Yeah,
in
it's a recognized
general, in your
state.
opinion.
I don't see the whole idea of like there isn't a Palestinian state. I mean, Jordan's kind of a Palestinian state, is it not? It's 80% Palestinian. How is it not a Palestinian state? Is there a Palestinian state in the West Bank? I mean, they have the
Can you hear me,
Palestinian
Graham?
Authority.
Yeah, I
They
can
have
hear you. I can hear
governor.
you. Okay. I'm trying out this new setup. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I can hear. He can hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, listen, you might think that I'm calling in to be like aggressive or whatever with the guest. I actually hold on. My computer's lagging. No, I actually appreciate what the guest is saying. Truthfully, I do. I think that he's absolutely right. I think Spiegelman's argument around Israel is going to give is the good things about Israel. He mentioned B'Tselem. B'Tselem, there's Harass, there's Gideon Leedy. I mean, these are some of the most critical people of the state actors in Israel, and I would absolutely agree with that. I take issue with the notion that there's nowhere else in the Middle East Christians can live. After all, Lebanon.
No, not that can live. That they're growing. That they're growing. Not that they're living. Not that they're living. That they're growing.
Not really true.
Big distinction. Big distinction. Growing as opposed to just living.
He's not saying
Let's think
living.
about it.
He's just saying they're growing.
No.
He's
I
saying a
said
growing
growing. Look at
population.
it. Egypt.
He said
Egypt was
growing
was
population of
Egyptian.
Christians.
Lebanon was almost entirely Egyptian. Syrian was Christian, right? How many of those countries are still Christian now, and how much of them are actually going down? But Israel, it's actually growing. I'm not saying living. Obviously, there's Christians in Iran, Christians in all over the Middle East. I'm saying growing. Israel's the only place that's actually going up.
Yeah, you're gonna have to plug your headphones in, Chris. That's giving a lot of feedback. Okay.
Yeah. It was nice to meet everybody in the chat.
It's difficult to have a conversation with the guest, but I heard him talk about Syria, and that's actually a good point for one of the reasons that I oppose Israel. Because Israel, I don't think there's any doubt that Israel was supportive of al-Sharaa coming in because Assad was allied
with Iran, and Assad was actually the person that was protecting religious minorities in Syria. It's generally.
I can't hear him. What is he saying?
I'll say this, and
I heard Bashar Assad in
I'm
Syria.
not
I
going
didn't
to
really
be
hear much
here
else.
to get. I apologize, guys. Maybe sometime we can do Streamlab. I can't hear you when I'm talking. I apologize. But just to get this out, when I look at media, it's funny how people say the Jews are dishonest in their media because Israel has some of the best reporting in the world. I would stipulate to that. It's almost entirely the
But it's being
expansion
drowned
project that
out by
Israel does
thousands upon thousands of voices spewing all the nonsense.
that I take issue with.
I can only hear one at a time. So if you're both talking, I can only understand one of you. Go ahead and what were you gonna say?
It's actually going on.
What were you gonna say? You can respond to the caller
Me?
now. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't understand much of what he said. I think he said something about Bashar al-Assad in Syria and the Christian population
Yeah, he
there.
said that you backed Syria or whatever. Or something about that, yeah.
I don't have anything to talk about there. I don't really know much about it. If I did, I would talk about it, but I don't really know much about Bashar al-Assad or Israel's involvement with Syria or what happened to the Christian population there as a result. I don't know, so I can't have an opinion on it.
Fair enough. If someone, there is another super chat. Someone says, if someone does not accept religious texts as historical proof, how would they evaluate the claim that modern Ashkenazi communities descended from ancient populations of the Levant 2,000 years ago?
Why do you need a religious text to tell you that? You have the genetics, first of all. You have the genetic studies that show the Ashkenazics come from the Levantine area. You also have the traditions that have been passed down. You also have the Hebrew mixed with German, Yiddish, that we've carried since we went there in the first place. All right. So saying that we don't have any ties to the Middle East just because we're white is very stupid. And I'll say why it's stupid. Because again, I've said before in your live stream that there was something called a bottleneck, in which a couple of the white ones, right, mixed with the Europeans a little bit, and that led to only 55 families actually being left. And that's where almost every single Ashkenazi comes from. They come from that 55 families, that bottleneck. So that's why a lot of us are predominantly white as opposed to looking Middle Eastern. Our traditions are the same as all of our brothers and sisters that have gone all over the world. We have the same faith, the same texts. We've communicated with each other across all that time. We have the same teachings, the same books. Why would we not be the same as them?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you can respond to it, sure.
So I'm going to do a lot more steel manning than you anticipate, Graham. What I would say is as a lawyer, I don't principally, but I certainly do analyze things through a legal lens. And there was a case in 1987 I did against called, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing, Sheree Tefillah Congregation versus Cobb. And that found that under, I think it was 1982, it was 1982, I think it had to do with property defacement. It essentially categorized being Jewish as a race. So in terms of discrimination, being Jewish is a race, and that's a legal truth. What I would say is if I'm getting heated into an argument with somebody I consider to be supporting fascism, I'll get hyperbolic. But to be honest with you, I think that people trying to, essentially say only Mizrahis are Jewish, Middle East, I don't really care about that. What I care about is in terms of the struggle that's brought Jews together, we look at, there's been a lot of them, but the Holocaust is the big one, and I don't think there's really any argument to say that the pogroms and the Holocaust didn't affect Ashkenazis. In fact, I think it would be kind of ludicrous to say that Ashkenazis didn't get the worst of it. So, yeah,
I can't hear you.
I think that people are.
He said the Ashkenazis got the worst of it.
No, not by far, not by far. You had a lot going on in the Mizrahi communities, in the Sephardic communities. It's happened all over history, through all over every community. I think if you want to make that argument, you can make the argument that the Kaifeng and the Cochin Jews had the least discrimination of everybody.
I would think the Eastern Europe
No, it's. I think. I think it's. What's he's? What's? I can't hear you. Okay, what is? Hold on, you're glitching in and out.
What do you want to say?
Okay, what's your point? I'm not going to try to claim that Jews and the Ashkenazi Jews have had the worst of it. Obviously, we've had a lot, but it's by no means the worst of it. Every single Jew alive has had some form throughout their history.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we don't.
I will.
I didn't understand what he was saying. A lot of it.
He said.
didn't hear a
He
lot of
said. I'll tell you what he says. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
I told him I'm gonna repeat what
talking
you. Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead and talk. I told him I'm gonna tell him
I will
what
not
you
make
said.
the claim that Ashkenazi Jews had the worst of it by far. I'm gonna say we had it bad. The Sephardim had it bad. The Mizrahim had it bad. The again, the Cochin and the Kaifeng, I'm not sure how much bad how bad they had it, but Jews have had it bad. I'm gonna use that term colloquially to refer to all Jews. We've had it bad. All right, 3,500 years. There's gonna be a lot of incidents, a lot of hatred, a lot of persecution, a lot of pogroms, a lot of massacres, all across the board. I'm not gonna say that Ashkenazi Jews have a monopoly on persecution. I'm not gonna do that because that's stupid. It's stupid because I know history. I've seen what happened to the Mizrahim. I see what happened to the Sephardim. I've seen what happened to Jews all over the world. I'm not going to say that we have a monopoly on persecution by far. No. I'm not sure what his claim is.
Okay, he's saying that they
I think
don't have a
it's.
monopoly on persecution, and that he's not going to say one Jew got it worse than the other Jew. I'll just summarize it for
I
you.
think
You
a lot
there,
of the.
Chris?
I was saying a lot of
Yeah,
Sephardim, a lot of Mizrahim.
that's fair. I was actually having empathy with Ashkenazis when people say that they're not like real Jews or whatever. I was actually kind of doing an olive branch.
But he doesn't really care.
No, but I
about
feel
the
like a
Jews.
lot of Mizrahim and I feel like a lot of Sephardim, they feel like again, I'm not sure about every single one, but the feeling amongst those communities is that because Ashkenazim have the Holocaust, that they get a monopoly on all the persecution that's ever happened. That is absolutely moronic in my opinion. I think that it's been bad all across the board, but a lot of hatred comes from all these other communities that feel like Ashkenazim are treated as the entire Jewish population when there's so many other Jews, Middle Eastern, Sephardic, Cochin, Kaifeng, African, all across the world that have had it equally as bad as well. And so that leads to a lot of anti-racism amongst the Jews to feel like Ashkenazim are like somewhat superior, which is not true at all.
What kind of Jew
You
are
have a
you,
lot
if
of
you don't
resentment
mind me
over the
asking?
fact that I'm Ashkenazic. My roots go back to.
Sorry, you cut off from me a little bit. I think he might have cut out. I think his phone might have died. How you doing, Shelia, though? How you doing?
I'll come on with you real quick, Graham, if you want to stream real quick. I got a new setup, bro.
Sure, let's see if he comes back. Let's wait.
Yeah, no, all I'm going to say is, Graham, watch how I'm different when somebody is reasonable and measured like he is.
Hello, Shelia. How are you doing? Blessings to you as well. I hope that you're not. I hope you have a roof over your head, because I remember last time you were saying that you were, quote unquote, homeless now. It's good to hear that you're holding on. Yeah, I think he might have disappeared. But yeah, he's in our Discord. I don't know if you saw the debate earlier, Chris, but the guy earlier was literally like a Hasidic Jew, but he kept rejecting it. This is how it started. He kept telling me for weeks and weeks, he said, bro, I want to debate you on Christianity. I kept thinking that he was an atheist, but it turned out that he was like a Jew or like a Hasidic Jew. Even this guy that's an actual Jew said that other guy was a Hasidic Jew. He said that he was pretending because he didn't want to come out with it. Because the dude, he had a Jewish Hasidic accent of a the New Yorker Hasidic Jew.
This guy, I would. My knowledge of different subtypes of Judaism is limited.
Here, but we'll try. We'll be back on another stream, guys. Adios. I hope you enjoyed that, though.